Welcome to Wire Guild. The tutorial I'm going to show you today is a 5-strand beaded bangle tutorial, and although it's only 5 strands and it is more delicate than the 8-strand bracelets we've been doing, it's still perfectly strong enough to be worn and is quite durable. You're going to need 5 lengths of 21 gauge square wire, about 4.5 inches of 1mm wire, some 18 gauge half hard half round wire to do the binding with, and then some 4mm beads. You can use larger beads, smaller beads, and this is a really good one to practice with and try different things because it really does look nice. Now I've got my 5 strands of wire and I'm just getting myself some half round wire here so that I can do the binding. When you're thinking about what sizes that you need to make and how you work out the length of your wire, I may have told you in other bangle tutorials, but I'll go through it again. You can do it one of two ways. You can either measure the exact size of the wrist, and then by adding the clasp you get a little bit of movement there. I've just got some pretty blue beads there that I've just poured out onto with my 5 strands. Or you can take the size that you want the finished piece to be and then take off ½ inch. So if I want my finished size to be, I don't know, let's say 7.5 inches, so it would be the finished size minus ½ inch, or the exact size of the wrist. So I think my wires are about 7 inches, so my finished piece will be about 7.5 inches long. Now let's just see what these, if they would go on, there we go, see what they look like. Look quite nice. I do like blue and copper and green and copper together. Those colours, they go very well with it, and as you can see that as I bring those wires down around the stone it will sort of nestle it in, but as for now we need to just start the binding. Now you don't want to bind dead in the middle. I'm just getting the wires even. You see how I just sort of stroke backwards and forwards until they all line themselves up. It's not a tight, I aren't gripping, I aren't nipping hard, I'm just rubbing them. And then if I just place the pliers over the top, they're all nice and flat. So I've got 7 inch. Now normally halfway through would be 3.5, so I'm going to go about 1/4 inch to one side of that. There we go. Because your bead wants to sit absolutely central, not your binding. So that first binding is going to go about 1/4 inch, ½ centimetre off to one side of middle. And I'm going to put my nice bend in against the flat side, so the flat side's down to the metal, and wrap it round. Those of you that have already made an 8-strand bracelet will find this really quite simple, because corralling 5 is an awful lot easier than doing 8. So I'm going to go around several times and just pressing down each time and tightening up that first wrap just so that I don't have a loose bit. Just wrap that round and back, and we'll go one more time around, press down. The copper binding wire I find tries to twist on me more than the silver does. It's a little softer and it does try to twist, but don't let it. Tell it who's boss. I've lifted that wire up so that I can get into cut, and I'm cutting less than halfway, and I'm going to press those down. There we go. Okie dokie. Then I can spread these wires out, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and 1 in the middle, and then the bead slides down if you can find the hole, all the way down like that. And as you can see, very pretty. But I know I got the blue ones out, but bear with me a moment, let me just have a root around. I've got some silver beads somewhere, and I think they might look really, really pretty because I'm using copper wires, see. So let me just see what this looks like. This is a 4mm silver bead. The blue ones were 6mm Swarovski. If I can just find the hole. I think I need 2 pairs of glasses, you know, one just to work with and then super duper glasses to find the hole on the beads. Mind you, that one's only got 1 hole in, that's probably why I couldn't find it. Let's get another bead. Okay, new packet. Let's see what we've got in here. Let's try this. There we go, definitely a hole in that one. On it goes. So I think that looks really nice. It's sort of a very nice everyday type thing. So I'll move the Swarovski out of the way, but please do have a go with them because they do look great. Now, 1 wire at one side, 1 wire at the other, bring them up and around, use your pliers. My finger and thumb are keeping the wires together flat as I can, and the pliers are closing over the top around that bead. I'm trying to do it so that you can actually see. So round and squeeze back on flat, because with it being a round bead, the temptation of the wire is to slide up the bead and to meet at the top, and we don't want it to do that. We want it to be flat. So keep going at the side and then at the top. Just give it a shove. There we go. And then bring the next wire down and bring that in. Pliers have gone over the top again so that the wire doesn't cross over itself. That's it. And then just press, press. Now I've got a little gap in there, so I need to just push that in a little bit more with the pliers. You're aiming for these wires to surround the bead as closely as possible, as if the bead is part of these wires, as if it's just a little bubble has just blown up out the middle of the wire. It's strange. If you see one of these bracelets where somebody's not taken particular care of getting the wire around a bead, you'll see these long sort of straggly lines of wire, and it doesn't look as nice because they'll just be there inside where those bindings are, and it's not good. So I've got my binding wire back again, and I'm going to put a fold in it once I've cut some of it off. There's no point in working with a huge length, especially when I'm just poking the camera with it all the time. Whoops. See that blue bead trying to get in on the act there? I'll just move that out of the way. And then we go down, round, press down with the pliers, and round, and press down with the pliers. And I'm going to go around the same 4 times that I did on the other side of the bead. Just make sure it's all flat. Don't rush this. Nice and easy. The finish will be so much better if you just take it easy, take it slow, and it's one of those that you really can tell. There is nowhere to hide on this. You haven't got curls and swirls and things over the top. So take your time, relax, and make sure all your bindings are nice and flat, that your wires are all laid nice and neat. Okay, first bead in, onto the second bead. Bring 2 wires out on that side and 2 wires out on that side. Then I'm going to thread on another silver bead. These look very pretty if you do them with multicoloured beads, you know, so jewel colours, bright reds, golds, greens, blues. They look gorgeous. I've actually been trying to find it. I had one somewhere, and when I do, I'll get a photo and I'll pop it on the forum because I haven't been able to find it to put it in the tutorial. But bright colours in these look ace. Now just bring that together. Can you see how the bead just pops back up where it needs to be as soon as you start squeezing in? Then the next wire, squeeze over the top with the pliers so that it tucks in onto the top to make sure those wires are laying flat. Then bring the next wire in, and trying to find a way that I can actually get under the camera and show you what I'm doing. It's not always the easiest thing. There we go. Make sure they're flat. So that's your second bead. So I need some more binding wire. Let's put a nice bend in that, make it nice so that it goes on neat. Over the top and wrap around. I'm going to wrap around the same 4 times that I've done on the other binding, and all the time pressing it down with my pliers, making sure it's flat, making sure it's neat. There we go. Press down and around. Needs another one. You do need to check that you've got the right amount of bindings, because there are times when you don't look too closely and you think, oh yeah, that's right, and it's not until you've got the whole thing finished and you look at it and you suddenly realise that one of your sets of bindings has less or more than all the others, and it just doesn't quite look. Most people wouldn't notice, but it drives me crackers. I need to have it. So that's 2 beads. So I go back to the other side, 2 wires out, 2 wires out there, and then I'm going to pop another bead on. There we go. Let's bring the wires around. 1, 2, and squeeze them in with the pliers. Watch the bead just pop back up where it ought to be. That's it. Squeeze in, flatten down. Squeeze in, and then flatten back down. There we go. You can try this with more wires if you want something, particularly if somebody's seen one and said, no, you know what, I'd like it a little bit heavier. You can do it with more wires, but it needs to be an odd number. You can't use your 8 that we would normally use. So probably, 7 would give you another 2 wires out this side. If you did it with 9, it really is getting quite heavy then, because you'd have 4 wires either side. It just doesn't quite want to go in. Let's just give it another squeeze. You see how I'm always going back to the top, from the side down onto the top. You don't want those wires to sit on top of each other. Okay, let's just put my bend, and then I'm going to bind this 4 times just like the other. Now, I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole of this bracelet. I'm sure with 3 of them in place you've got a really good idea now. You've got your optimum length of bracelet because you've already cut your wires to the correct length. I suppose if you wanted, you could just leave it at 3 beads on the top and just do maybe a little bit more binding down the side and finish off and go straight to the clasps, and that would look quite pretty, very delicate, but I do like it with more beads going all the way around. Let's just have a look. Yeah, you see it is kind of pretty there with just the 3 on, but I do like it when it's filled up. So I'm going to carry on, and yeah, it is nice, but I think I want some more. So I'm going to carry on and put more beads on both sides, making sure that I go evenly, one on one side, one on the other, and backwards and forwards. There we go. I could do my Blue Peter bit and say, here's one I made earlier. Now I'm going to snip these ends straight, because obviously the middle wire is now much longer than the 4 outer wires, because of course we haven't moved that anywhere, and then the next one ins haven't had to go as far around the beads, so they just all need a little even up. Now some of the beads are up, some of the beads are down, but don't worry about that, we'll sort that in a bit. And I'm going to put my binding wires on the end, and I'm going to give them quite a bind. I could have probably got another bead in that gap, but it don't really matter. I'm just going to bind round here. Thing is, although I like decoration quite a long way around, I don't like to wear a bracelet that's sort of heavy underneath on my wrists, because when we're using the computer a lot I find that it digs in and it's not really comfortable. So that's personal preference, you know. I mean, a lot of people would probably like them with decoration going right up to this last binding. Let me just tighten that first one, pull it back down, give it a tug, tighten it up so that it doesn't have a little sticky out bit, and then we'll press that down. Lovely. I've got probably 1/4 of an inch at this end, and I'm just going to split the ends so that I have 2 wires on that side and 3 on that side, and I've made like a V shape with them. Now I'm going to bind up the other side. Where have I put my binding wire now? I better get some more. I don't think there's enough to do it with that bit that I had left. Pop a bend in. Try and get my fingers back into shot. There we go. Start about in the same place. Yep. I'm just checking how many bindings I put on that side so that I can do a same amount on this side. And I've got plenty of wire in that first bend so that I don't have to go too far near the edge. There's nothing worse than thinking, oh, you know, I need 8 bindings on here, but if I keep going for 8 I aren't going to have the room to create the hooks to make, you know, to fasten the hooks and eyes on. So with that little bit extra there on the left, I can allow myself that leeway that I can go the other way if I need to. Now if you start too far in and you get to the end of your amount of wraps that you need, what you can do is keep wrapping and then unwrap from the other end. Let's get that nice and neat. Tighten that end up and snip off with the pliers the right way around. There we go. And I'm cutting off less than halfway so that these don't lift. I've just got a little odd one there where I haven't evened them up properly. Can you see that bit there? I'm just going to go, there we go, over my pliers so they're all nice and even. And then I'm going to separate the wires again, 2 on one side, 3 on the other, but this time it's the opposite side. So the side I had 2 on last time will have 3 on this time, and the side that had 3. So there you go, you've got 2 there, but 3 on this side, and 3 on the top, and 2 on the other side. Alright, so there is my bracelet, all ready to have its clasp put on. Now, you know I said I was going to sort the beads. There we go, we just pop them through to the front, supporting on the bindings and just pushing them through, and then they'll all stand up towards the top. Okay, so your bracelet side of things is done now, so now we're going to go on to creating the hook and eye. Now I know a few people have said to me on the forum the hook and eye is a pain in the neck and they're having trouble with it. Well, I think you might find this one easier. So I've got 2.5 inch length there. Sorry, I don't know what this equates to in metric, I'm not sure, but most people have got, you know, rulers where you can use either. So I've got a 2.5 inch length and I've got a 2 inch length. So what I'm going to do is grab some flat-ended pliers and I'm going to bend this in the middle. If you need to draw on it, you know, go ahead, draw on it, but I tend to do it by eye nowadays. And then over the top, squeeze it tight so that you've got just a little fold. Round those pliers, grip the end where we folded and curl that round into a hook. Don't make it touch. If you make it touch, you can't fasten it. I know that sounds really silly, but you'd be amazed how many people make them touch. So once I've got the hook on, I'm going to get my flat pliers back and put the hook inside the flat pliers. There we go. Then I can bend, see the hooks there? In it goes. Then I'm going to bend one wire and one wire the other. Just into a V shape. It's not flat or anything like that, just a V. Round those pliers on, and I'm curling this wire inwards like that, and exactly the same on the other side. There we go, all the way up till it touches. And you see how they try to cross over? If they cross over, put your hook back in, and then you can just put one jaw of your round nose pliers in one side and just open them up, put both in, there we go. Then neaten that up so they just sit nicely together. Now your other piece of wire is 2 inches long, so I'm gripping it in my round nose pliers in the middle and bending that into a U shape. It's a little tiny bit different there, so I'm just going to trim that end. It's only a tiny teeny bit, it'll be alright. Round nose pliers onto the end of the wire, get your fingers back in shot, Rachel, and curl that all the way around so it touches, and do the same on the other side, all the way around until it touches. And then if you put one plier in one side and one in the other, you can just squeeze them together and you've got a little hook on it. Now, flat pliers on, lift these wires up so that they're up to the top, or the outside if you like, of the bracelet, and create a hook. Again, don't make it touch. You don't want it to touch because then you won't be able to get your hook in. Right, and then slide on your hook and eye. If you just mash these down, they're uncomfortable, so snipe pliers through the loop of the hook of the eye and then ease that over. Because there is only 2 wires on one side and 3 wires on the other, this will move so much easier than when we do it the bracelet with 8. And I'm sure you're going to find this a lot easier to do. So there's my hook. Whoops, I haven't made any loops at this end. Lift up to the top, round nose pliers onto the edge and create 2 little hooks. Have you seen how I flip it over? I think that's possibly because I'm right-handed, so it's easier to do one going away and one coming towards. I'm not sure. I do it automatically without thinking. So pliers in and ease those circles over and just tuck them in. There are then no sharp edges or anything like that to catch against your wrist, because that's the last thing you want. And just easing those down, making sure they're smooth. Now then, your bracelet's done. Now if you don't have a wrist mandrel or anything fancy like that, you don't need one. I'm just giving this a quick rub with the polishing cloth. There we go. It's just, I think my hands must have been oily or something. It's quite discoloured, is this one. So you don't need a bracelet mandrel. I've got a jam jar here and I'm just gonna, oops, there isn't a lot of room between me and the camera. Smooth that around the jam jar so that you've got a nice gentle curve. And then I've got a ring display and I'm just using it, you see I'm not actually curving it around the ring display, I'm just using that to tuck the curve in a bit more. Fasten it and then just ease, 2 fingers inside, fingers on the outside, smooth it round into a nice shape. Make sure it fits. A little tight for me, but it's the right size to sell, is this. There we go. A copper with silver beaded bangle using 5 strands of wire, which looks amazing with multicoloured Swarovski in it. Can't wait to see the pictures on the forum and what you make. I'm sure there's going to be lovely. Thank you very much for watching. And remember, if you want to see these videos and you'd like to watch them streamed in HD, you can do at www.wireguild.com. Happy wrapping!